Hi guys, welcome to new session of Business Studies Class 12 Quick Revision. Today we are going to revise chapter number 3, that is business environment. So let's start. First of all, what do we mean by business environment? Basically, it is the sum total of all individuals, institutes and other forces which are outside the control of a business firm, but they have the ability to affect the performance of the organization. So all the consumers, the consumer groups, the court, media, government, competitors, they are outside the control of the organization, but they can straight away affect the working of a business. For example, any change in business policy, any rapidly changing technology, any change in competition, any change in taste and preferences of the consumer, all of them can influence the operation of a business, and business has no control over these changes. So before we go into the different dimensions, let us understand what are the features of this business environment. First of all, it is the totality of all external forces. External forces means all individuals, institution and other forces which are outside the control of a business firm, but they have the ability to affect the performance of an organization. If I summarize all these forces, then it becomes the business environment. Then it is specific and the general forces. It includes both specific as well as general forces. So what are specific forces? Forces which affect my business directly. So my consumers, my competitors, my suppliers, my investors, all these are specific forces. Why? Because they impact my business directly. Then I have general forces. General forces include the pestle. P political, E economics, S social, T technology, L legal. They affect all businesses in general. Then all these forces are interrelated. That is, different part of business and environments are closely related to each other. So for example, if people become health conscious, that is, if people have increased awareness about their health, so there will be a change in the taste and preferences of the society in large, which will impact how they look at your product. So therefore, how society perceive and how taste and preferences work will also they are very closely interrelated to each other. Then these business environment has a very dynamic nature. That is, it keeps on changing, it never remains constant. So whether we talk about technology, whether we talk about social change, economic change, all these changes are happening very rapidly. What is the job of the management then? Management of the company is expected to remain alert and adaptable to all these dynamic changes. They have to make sure that they have a keen pulse. They have a finger on the pulse of these changes which are taking place in the society. For example, if consumer preference or any change in the competition, a new industrial policy is brought in by the government, all these factors, they have the ability to impact your business in a good way and a bad way. So if you do not have the keen understanding of the changes, you won't be able to adapt to these changes. Then this business environment is uncertain. That is, it is highly uncertain in nature, which means it is very difficult to predict what is going to happen in the future, especially when these changes are taking place very frequently. So garment manufacturing company, they it is very difficult for them to predict what kind of fashion the people are going to like in the future. Then this business environment is very complex in nature. So complexity is there. Why it is complex? Because it is easier to understand the business environment in small parts. But when you look at this business environment in its entirety, then it becomes difficult to learn. What is the impact a particular force will have on the function of business? That thing is very difficult to understand. Then it has relativity. It basically means that although every country has a political environment, so in that sense, every country has a political force which is impacting the businesses of that country. But how that political condition affect the business of that particular country differs. So political condition in the USA different from China. It is different from India. So therefore, you will find that demand for the product will be different. So although business environment is a relative concept, but it differs from country to country, region to region. Then let us understand the importance of business environment. First of all, it enables the firm to identify opportunities and get the first mover advantage. What are opportunities? Any trend or change which is positive to the environment, which is positive to the business, which help the firm to improve their performance. External environment does provide a lot of opportunities to the firm so that they can exploit new ideas and they can get a step over their competitors. It also helps the keeping a keen eye on the business environment also helps to identify the threat and early warning signals. Remember, this environment does not only give you opportunities, but it also present you with a lot of threat. That is changes or trends which can hinder a firm's performance. So you have to make sure that environment awareness of a manager is there so that they can identify various threats and at least they can make sure these threats do not affect the working of a business that much. So they have to make early steps accordingly to counter this threats. Then keeping a very keen eye on business environment also helps in tapping useful resources. As we know, a business operates within a society and that society provide a lot of resources for running a business. From doing any type of business activity, a firm would always require various resources. Resources basically mean inputs. This could be inputs of finance, raw material, labor, a lot of things. And these resources they come from the environment. So now it is the duty of the business that they should supply to the environment as well in the form of goods and services. They provide taxes to the government. They provide a return on the finances of the people who have invested. So if I use the resources of the society, I should also give back to the society as well. Then the business environment it helps in coping with rapid changes. As we know, business environment is dynamic in nature and these changes are happening at a very rapid pace. The markets are growing. You now know that markets are now global in nature. There is less brand royalty among the consumer because consumer has a lot of options now. Then the consumer demand has also gone up. The consumer is now demanding more in a product than what he was demanding 5 years or 10 years back. They have wide variety of choices. So in order to cope up with these changes, the manager must examine business environment. Then it helps in planning and policy formulation. Now business environment is a source of both opportunity and threat. Now understanding and analyzing can be a base for deciding future course of action, that is the planning, and make new guidelines, that is a policy. So unless and until you have a keen eye on the business environment, you won't be able to formulate policies which helps you to take advantage of the opportunities and protect yourself from the threat. And finally, it helps in improving performance. That is, understanding the trend help business to improve its performance. It has been observed that companies which monitor changes and they adjust to them as per the changing business environment, they tend to perform better than the enterprises which do not have a very keen eye on the business environment. Now, let us come to the main part of this chapter, that is the different dimensions of a business environment. So, you remember this by PESTEL: political, economical, social, technological, and legal. So, let's go through them one by one. First of all, you have the political environment. Now, political environment basically includes political factors which include stability, the peace maintained by a particular government. Now, it is also emphasizes on the attitude of government toward the business. Now, how do you assess a government attitude toward the business is with the help of what kind of policies they are formulating. Now, the success of a business is very much dependent upon the political stability maintained by government. Also, the steps which are taken by the government for improving the infrastructural facilities. Then you have economic environment. Basically, the components like interest rate, inflation rate, changes in disposable income, stock market indices, these are all included in the economic environment. Now, such economic factors, they have a very significant impact on the working of a company. High inflation rate usually create disturbance for the companies as they have to increase the price of the product. So therefore, the 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 business owner have to make sure that they know what kind of economic environment is there in the economy and what can they do to protect themselves. and what can they do to take advantage of that. Then you have social environment. Now, basically, in a society, you have a lot of customs, traditions, values, rituals, which are followed by a society in general. Now, traditions and rituals are what defines the social practice which are carried out. For example, when you celebrate Diwali, when you celebrate Holi, when you celebrate Eid, there is a festivity environment in the country. In that environment, there is a lot of option for any manufacturer to gain from the opportunities. But social trend also imposes some threats. So, for example, as more and more people are getting health conscious, so the sweets which were selling, those sweets, how they are made, how they are sourced, that also becomes an important factor when a consumer is buying them. So the health and fitness trend have created awareness among the people. So they are demanding more and more organic products. Then you have technological environment. It includes forces like scientific improvement, innovations, and with the help of these innovations, new ways of producing goods and services are developed. These new method of operating business, they help in bringing down the cost. Now, continuous innovation in different scientific and engineering field like robotics or biotechnology, they provide a numerous threat also, but they also provide opportunity also. Opportunity is when you adapt to them. Threat when you don't adapt to them and your competitor adapt to them. Then you have legal environment. So legislation passed by the administrative bodies of the government. In India, you have the parliamentary system. You have the high courts and the supreme courts. The laws which are passed by them, they makes a legal environment. Now, it is always essential and compulsory for all the management bodies to obey such laws. Why? Sir, because if you don't follow the laws, you will be penalized and you will suffer. So, therefore, you should hire people who have a very complete knowledge of rules and regulation so that you can follow them properly. The last topic of this chapter is demonetization. Now, what is demonetization? Basically, it is a process that involves a change of national currency where old currency is replaced by a new one. I'm sure you know in 2016, in the month of November, the government of India it demonetized 500 and 1000 rupee notes. Now that was almost 85-86% cash circulation, which was declared invalid by the government. Now the aim of demonetization was to curb corruption, to stop counterfeiting the fake notes which were circulating in the economy, to stop that, especially the accumulation of black money which is not declared with the tax authorities. That was the purpose of demonetization. When you say that okay, the old currency is no longer valid and the new currency is valid. Now let us understand what are the features of demonetization. It's a pretty important topic. First of all, this demonetization is a tax administrative measure. See, when cash holdings are there from your declared income, that is, that cash holding is not black, it's white money. So you don't mind depositing that money in the bank. Once you deposit it, you will get new notes. But if that money is black money and it is unaccounted money or undeclared money, so when you deposit that money in the bank will ask you the source of the money. If you are not able to tell the source of the money, then you will have to pay taxes on it with the penalty. So it helps the government to increase the tax. Then demonetization is interpreted as a shift on the part of the government indicating that tax evasion will no longer be tolerated or accepted. That is, it tells the people that how serious our government is about tax evasion. Because understand, demonetization is not a very simple or a very popular step to take. People suffer a lot because of demonetization, and especially when you demonetize almost 85% of your circulated money. But if such drastic steps are taken by the government, it shows to the people, especially to those people who are defrauding the system, that government is very serious about people who do tax avoidance. The government is willing to go to extreme steps in order to avoid tax evasion or in order to catch those people who are doing tax evasion. Then it leads to tax administration channelizing savings into formal financial system. Now people who have money but they have not deposited that money in the bank because they do not trust the banking system, now they are also forced to keep the money in the bank. So therefore you have increased the cash holding of the bank. Now how does bank use that extra money? The bank will give out more loans. So more loans are given out, more factories will be set up, and ultimately the development will happen and you will get a good return. And finally, with the help of demonetization, the government wants to create a cashless economy. Now, since the demonetization has happened, apps like Paytm, PhonePe, Google Pay, they have all emerged. Why? Because now people have realized that okay, you don't need to carry big bundles of cash when you're going to shop. Once you are at the shop, you just scan the QR code and you will be able to transfer the money. Now, through the formal financial system and improving tax compliances, the government is channelizing more savings. Although there is a lot of argument against this digital transaction because it leads to more cyber fraud also. Also, in order to make sure or in order to facilitate this online transaction takes place, the customer should have a smartphone and the shopkeeper should also have a point of sale, that small QR machines which you see. And more importantly, there should be internet connectivity. But on the contrary, that these disadvantages are counterbalanced by the understanding that it helps people in the formal economy. So with this, we have completed the revision of our chapter number 3. I hope you like this video. If you did, please like, share, subscribe my channel. Thank you so much for watching.